and above. And for many of the situation is part of the joint venture between the NNPC, which is the Nigerian government, and many of the oil exploration and exploitation companies, particularly majorly the IOCs, after exploiting the oil block for the certain period of time and investing some measure of resources on them, and they want to either divest from the oil block or move, like it is currently being done majorly by them, move to offshore. And also sometimes they just also want to get some new licenses to invest on and reduce their investment in the area. So the marginal oil field, quite a number of them are still not either allocated to new owners, but with the current situation, it's been done with the purpose of increasing the local involvement, the local context, and also participation of Nigerian-owned oil companies to be part of the stakeholders in the oil sector, considering that sometimes the capacity and also the resources could be challenging for indigenous companies to directly be participants in the oil sector. The last that was actually held in this country was back in 2003, 2004, and several attempts at getting some of the marginal field license reallocated have been unsuccessful until the last that was held between 2020 and 2021. What we've done, considering the fact that there's a need for Nigeria also to increase and improve the transparency and accountability in the oil sector. That is one of the sectors with the highest rate of corruption in this country. It's responsible for both private and public, corruption in Nigeria, and that is also fueling the insecurity that we have around, which resulted in the country going as low as 800,000 barrels per day from 2 million barrels per day, where you have the oil theft and you have a conspiracy of even the security agencies, as has been alleged by quite a number of participants in that situation, and also the record of some of the oil companies also under declaring oil quantity that are exported from the country without the appropriate mechanisms for measuring and monitoring the exploitation and also the exportation of oil in the country. The ultimate where we are also going to is not just about accountability, that is how Nigeria can also divest from the fossil fuel dependency in terms of revenue generation, energy transition, and the rest of that. But there must be steps that we need to take gradually, considering the fact that even the people are not really benefiting, the communities are not benefiting and deriving the maximum possible benefit from the naturally endowed resources of the country. So we have engaged consultants to interact with broad stakeholders to have a review of what transpired with the 2020-2021 marginal oil field block allocation. And that is the basis of our convening this meeting this morning, so that we can share some of the highlights of the outcome of that engagement, some of the findings and the recommendations, and at the same time to see if we have moved away from the previous experience where many of oil block allocation are reading with influence peddling, also corruption, disguised beneficial owners, and the rest of that. So I will be reading just as the text some of the background, and at the same time the findings and recommendations, so that stakeholders in the oil sector, particularly the media, the civil society, can continue to serve as the watchdog to ensure that we have public participation, transparency, and accountability in the management of the affairs of the country and also the resources of the country. Conclusions and recommendations of the report Even though it took almost 2 decades to come after the first bid round held in 2003-2004, the 2020-2021 marginal field bid licensing round, according to the report, passed the overall test of quality assurance. Among others, the report recommends the following for advocacy and engagement ahead of future exercise, particularly borrowing from the past, from the earlier read gaps and challenges that were identified with the 2020-2021 bid rounds. The full disclosure of information at all stages of the bid licensing round is very critical, and this must actually be followed by all stakeholders. It must start from the beginning of the expression of interest up to the issuance of certificate of award to avoid the peddling of real or imagined allegations about happenings of untoward practices by stakeholders. It is important that the communities, other bidders, the civil society, the media, and every stakeholders carried along with information disclosure to the extent that everybody feels satisfied and not feel shortchanged or undermined, as it has happened with the 2021 bidding round. And specifically, the process should disclose information comprising the names of companies that express interest for which block or fields, names of their owners, amount of money paid, processes scaled through or fell behind, plans for the host community. I mean, we can't afford to continue the trend where communities are further degraded by oil spillage, pollution, and the rest of that are due to exploitation. The community development, contract transparency should be prioritized in the process. It is not sufficient to just allocate the license and the regulatory agencies are allowed to just look the other way, which will include, and importantly, that NUPRC going forward must involve organizations like NOSDRA, NEITI, the Human Rights Commission, as part of the bidding process, so that all the companies that are located are also monitored for further scrutiny. There should be the need for cross-institutional checks for key policy and legal provisions, such as the beneficial ownership register that is already been signed by Nigeria, especially for the oil and gas sector, and the contract transparency as recommended to be upheld in strict collaboration with civil society and the media. It is not just enough to claim transparency, it is also necessary for stakeholders to see procedure is undeniably followed. There is the need for broader stakeholders buy-in and respect for independence of investors and companies to determine who they want in a merger, and with whom they fund the special purpose vehicles, and the level of equity participation and profit sharing formula should be guaranteed instead of forcing a merger of bedfellows. I mean, it actually happened in the 2020-2021 bid licensing round, where NUPRC actually either we can say it enforced or imposed a measure of merger on some of those companies without due recognition for the conflicts that might arise from the profit sharing formula, the equity participation, and the rest of that. And lastly, there should be the deliberate effort by NUPRC to promote stakeholders' collaboration to realize the central goal and objectives of every oil bid licensing round, while they collectively act as a check on one another for the overriding interest of the country's economic growth and development. Thank you very much, Prof. To also continue to interrogate the process. Interestingly, because it was 2020-2021, the process of reaching production stage is not that quick, so it takes some time. If it is a fresh one, the moving from the oil mining lease to the oil processing license could take some even 10 years. So, but these are marginal fields, so they are already investments in the block. So some of them are produced before, abandoned, and just like we said, some of the facilities that are there are obsolete. So many of the winners will have to go back to review the available facilities to ensure that they are fit for purpose before they start production. And for us, we don't even want them to start production right immediately, because there must be need to ensure that we don't have these spillages that will be blamed on vandalization. There's a need to continue overhauling of the system to ensure that the production will not negatively impact in the community. And that is why you will have the challenge that was happening recently with what's his name again? Peters, I've forgotten the other name, which got some of these license divestment from Shell under the Jonathan regime, and they started production, and the thing continued in the Niger Delta with several pollution in the Human Rights Commission, and the communities must be involved in the process before we get to the stage of production. The report of the licensing, part of which is where it is extremely important that people should read this report, is that many of those information are usually not just available. It took us almost like 6 months, a year, to gather all the materials from different sources. It was difficult to get all the materials either from the NUPRC website or just any other website. It took talking to stakeholders, gathering from the NUPRC, going to newspapers and other media reports to have some of this detailed information that is here. So we must continue to demand. It was said that this was projected to realize about 200 billion naira and $7 million for the country. So it is also part of the question to be raised whether such an amount of money actually went to the federation account, because the states, especially particularly the states and the local government, which are part of the federating unit, are not also rising up to the expectation, because this money is never only for the federal government. It is the Federation of Nigeria, which means it must go to the federation account and share between states, local government, and then the federal government. Unfortunately, what we have heard several times is that NNPC fails to remit so amount to the federation account. It is not in any way heard of that you don't have the part of that process of the bidding round, but that process fell short of living up, and that is not just either the wish of NUPRC, that actually is the law. So if we don't continue making the demands, it will continue falling short of that required standard, and the media and civil society should take this seriously and not just allow it to sleep. PIA actually played the critical role, because it was in the process where the DPR was actually midwifing the process, and the PIA actually created the NUPRC. And the NUPRC, we must give that credit to NUPRC. It went away from the usual tradition of NUPRC, where it is, of DPR, where all you have is just about the Minister of State or the Minister, influence peddling, the President and the rest of that, and actually midwife this expression of interest that created about over 600 expressions that were received, narrowing down to the number that eventually won the licenses. This is really good, even if it is not perfect, but this is a departure from the past, and that is the kind of thing we want to encourage. So it is not meant to be like a free giving for us. It is the law, and we must continue to demand that law is observed and respected. But the PIA actually also assisted in getting the better outcome that we're observing here. Thank you.